we don't solicit anything on these calls. These calls are strictly educational because at Rev, we believe educated investors make the best investors. So we like providing a lot of the education. We pull the curtain back and really help people understand what it takes to get started invested in multifamily real estate. So my name is Dallin Schultz. I'm the president at Rev, and appreciate you being here. So today's topic, oh, and if you have questions along the way, just put them in the chat box. We'll make sure that we answer those. So today's topic, it's actually going to be kind of short and sweet. I really don't anticipate taking the whole hour at all, probably 20, 30 minutes, which is kind of nice. Kind of nice just to get a quick dose of some apartment investing education. So what we're going to be talking about today is what I would consider the good, better, and best options when it comes to investing in real estate. Now, you might have different thoughts, different feelings. That's okay. What I want to share with you is just what we've learned over the years and have experienced in almost every one of these avenues, and then where we're going as a team, as Rev. So we're not going to get into every single aspect of these different strategies, but we're going to touch on, first of all, I want to help you understand the basics of it, and then we're going to touch on some pros and cons of both of them. So number one, what I consider a good investment is investing. You take your money, let's say you have $50,000 as a single person, you go ahead and you invest that directly into a single family home. I believe real estate is a great investment. It's something that you can see, it's something that you can touch, and you know where your capital is going. And at the end of the day, it's a basic human need. That's why we love real estate at Rev. So good option. You take 50,000 personally and you throw it into a single family home. That's what a lot of people do, and that's where a lot of people start. And there's nothing wrong with it, but I feel like there's better options, better avenues that people can take. And we'll get more into this. So this one I'm just going to call, we'll just call this solo, because that's typically what people do. They do it on their own. So a better option, I'll refer to this as a syndication. Let's say you take your same $50,000, you invest it into a group of other investors. So now, let's say you've got 5 million in this pool of funds. Let me remind you, you still invested the $50,000. You didn't increase your investment, but you pooled that money together with other investors, and now you take that 5 million, leverage it with some bank financing, and you get into a large apartment building. So this is deal specific. This is what's often referred to as a syndication. And again, we're going to get more into it. What I would consider is the best option, and this is what the direction that Rev is moving, is a fund. So your fund option, you still take the same 50,000, and I need some longer arms. You still take that same 50,000, you still pool it with other investors, but then that money, let's say you pool it together and you have 5 million as a group, rather than putting it into one asset, you diversify it and you put it into 3 different assets. So let's just assume this is a 100-unit apartment building, and these are as well. And this will make sense as we get further into it. Okay, and we got one. One of the most basic reasons why we focus on multifamily investing is for the diversification. If you put your 50,000 into a single family home, again, I think it's a good option, but if that tenant moves out, you're 100% vacant. You've got nobody in there to help cover the cost until you can turn it and get somebody else in it. So the syndication route, if we're using that same scenario, you buy 100 units with this, let's say 10 people move out, you're still 90% occupied because you're diversifying that 50,000 over 100 units. Now, taking it to the next level, the fund route, same thing, but rather than diversifying your 50,000 over 100 units, you're now diversifying it amongst however many properties that fund is invested into. So again, just some quick, just quick pictures. I'm not an artist by any means, but I am a visual person. So hopefully this helps you understand the basic flow of some of these situations. Now, what I want to do is start getting into the pros and cons of each one of these. But before we get into that, is there any questions about how these structures work? And if you don't want to type it in the chat box, feel free to just unmute and ask. Okay. So let's get into this. Okay, so what are some of the pros of going the solo route, getting into a single family home? One of them I like to state is that it's familiar. Can you see the screen okay? Diana, you're the only one with a camera on. Can you see this okay? You can just nod your head. Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. So it's getting into a single family home is familiar. A lot of people have bought their own primary residence. So when it comes time to start investing in real estate, they're like, oh, okay, I've already been through that first transaction. So doing another one for an investment property, I'm comfortable with that. And that's when it really, people don't invest in things that they're not aware of, or they're not educated about, or they're not familiar with. So that's really what we're trying to focus on at Rev, is to show that there's better options, there's better ways. But a lot of people get started with this route, and that's great because they're familiar with it. They've gone through it. Here's the C word that everyone's looking for, everyone likes. It's the cash flow. When you have an investment property, if it's operated properly, you will get monthly cash flow. That's great. One of the main reasons I appreciate real estate is that it's tangible. I can put my money into a property, I can see it, I can touch it. I've got a pretty simple brain. So if you show me where my money is, what it's invested in, it's easier for me to sleep at night. I'm not a stock guy. I don't understand it. And that's okay. I know people that do very, very well in that space. But for me, I like stuff that's tangible. And there's tax benefits. Anytime you own investment in real estate, there's incredible tax benefits. And depending on if you're a real estate professional or not a real estate professional, it enables you to maximize those tax benefits along the way. So, some pros. Some cons, I'll do these in red. You often become the landlord and the maintenance person. When people get into a single family home, maybe two single family homes, because the cash flow is limited, they often have to manage it themselves, do the maintenance themselves. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I really don't. And in fact, if you don't have experience in real estate investing, I think this is a great way to start, because you learn to manage tenants. You learn and understand what maintenance is required. And it helps you learn how to budget and project what you're going to need for operations for that property. The mistake a lot of people make in going this route is that since they bought a home before, they think they could just buy another home and manage it as an investment property. That property might be putting out $600 a month, but they're taking all 600 of that. They're not setting anything aside for reserves or anything like that. So all of a sudden the hot water heater goes out, or the HVAC system goes out. And that could completely deplete that cash flow for that property for that entire year. So what a lot of people do to help mitigate some of that risk is that they become the landlord in maintenance, because then they're not paying other people to do it. And when you only have a few properties, sometimes that's what you have to do. Okay, another con, I'm going to say market appreciation and depreciation. And what I mean by that is that the value of the single family home, you have no control of. It is 100% dependent on the fluctuations of the market. And so if you're looking to invest in this, I would shoot, if I was to get into single family real estate, I would look for deals that cash flowed more than banking on an appreciation play, because you don't really have any control of that. Now, if you're really looking to grow wealth through real estate, single family real estate can be a slow way to do it. Now, I know people that have done it very successfully, but it's taken them years. It's taken them lots of time. So yes, you can build wealth with it, but it's slower compared to some of these other options. What that stands for is no economies of scale. And what that means is when you have more doors, when you have more units, things become more efficient to operate. And we'll talk about this more in the syndication. But think about it. If you have 100 units versus 1 unit, you can put an on-site property manager, you can put an on-site maintenance person, and the expense of hiring that person is spread out over 100 units versus the 1. So when you have a single family home, you can't experience that economies of scale. You might be paying 10% of your rent for a management fee, where if you're in a 100 unit or plus, you might be paying 4%. Now there's some other expenses and stuff in there that you got to consider, but that just goes to show you the economies of scale. Another way to think of economies of scale, okay, this is an example I like to use because a lot of people are familiar with it. You get a membership at a gym. I don't know if some of you have looked into the cost of weight equipment, but if you just wanted to go buy a dumbbell, we'll use a dumbbell for example, you're looking at close to $1 a pound for a single dumbbell. So if you wanted 2 25-pound dumbbells, you're looking at $50 just to get those 2 25-pound dumbbells. You go get a membership at a gym, some gyms, you're paying $10 a month. So for the cost of buying 1 set of dumbbells, you can get a membership at a gym for 5 months and be able to experience all the equipment that they have. That's really kind of the difference here is, yeah, you can put all your money into one deal, 1 set of dumbbells, or you can put it into something larger and really maximize your return. Excellent. So this is the solo route, the single family route, pros and cons, not all of them. It's not an exhaustive list, but again, something for you to consider. Any questions about this before we keep moving? Cool. All right, syndication. I touched on this just a minute ago. You got the diversification. You're taking that same 50,000 and rather than putting it into 1 door, you're putting it into, we'll say 100 doors. So you're diversifying, even though it's still a single asset, you're diversifying it over 100 doors versus 1 door. And I just talked about this, economies of scale. Since you're investing into something that has more units, you can spread out the cost and the operation expense over multiple doors, which makes it more efficient per unit. Now, right here, I have a specific asset, and actually, I'm going to throw that over here. as a con as well. Because some people, when they're investing into real estate, they like seeing exactly where their money is going. They like seeing exactly, hey, this is the property, this is the one I looked at, this is the one I evaluated. That's where my investment is. That can very much be a pro because you see where your investment's going. The reason I put it as a con is because you're still in a single asset. So imagine this for a minute, okay? You see this really beautiful property. It's presented to you by an operator. It's in Cape Coral, Florida, 2 years ago. High projected returns. Everything looks great. You're going to make 18%, 20% on your money. So you put $100,000 into that, or we'll just say 50,000 since that's the example we're using. 6 months ago, they got slammed by a hurricane. So if that, even though your investment was diversified over 100 units, that property just got hit by a hurricane. And yes, there's insurance on the property, or you should better have insurance, and enough to cover the cost of damages. But in that meantime, if people can't live in the apartment because of the damage, you're not experiencing any cash flow. So yes, you diversified it over one asset and you said, yes, I like this asset, but that asset just got hit by a hurricane because you still had all your eggs in one basket. So that's why I put it as a pro and a con, and just something to consider. Again, the tax benefits. One of the best reasons to get involved in real estate is for the tax benefits. They're absolutely incredible. And then what I really like the commercial space, and especially in like a syndication or multifamily, it's what we refer to as forced appreciation. On the single family, the value of that home is dependent on the market. There's really nothing you can do to change the value of that home. Even if you're flipping it, even if you're remodeling it, all you're doing is buying it at a discount and getting it up to market value. That's really what you're doing. With apartments and commercial real estate, you can force the appreciation. And the reason being is because it is a business. You are buying a business. And when you're buying a business, the value is determined by how much income it generates. So very quick, right? So you have your income minus your expenses gives you your net operating income. This goes into the formula of determining the value of the property. So if you can increase the income on the property, if you can decrease the expenses, you are increasing the NOI. These are things, the income and expenses are things you have control of as an operator. And so that's forced appreciation because you can force the value of that property. Now, the market still plays a role into this. So I'm not saying you have complete control or 100% control, but you have more control than if you were just going into a single family asset. So another great pro. And then as far as cons go, I'd say honestly, like with a syndication, it's a specific asset. And I think the things that really play into this too is not only an asset, but you're in a specific market and you're with a specific operator, right? So the property itself offers some diversification, but then there's some of these other areas that can negate some of that. And so just stuff to be aware of. Again, I still think this is a great option. And 2 of the most recent deals we've done as a team, this is what we did. So I don't think there's anything wrong with it. And I don't think there's anything wrong going into a single family home. I just believe that there's good, better, and best options out there. So before we move on to what we call as a fund of funds, any questions about the syndication? Okay. I'm going to bring this over closer to me so I don't have to stretch so far. And this is being recorded, and we do provide the recordings of these videos. So if you want to go back and refresh your memory on some of these things, you'll have access to that. So don't worry about that. So the best option, a fund. And this is where we're transitioning into a team. And over the next couple minutes, I'll help you understand why. So pros, we talked about diversification and the syndication route, diversifying over 100 units, for example. With a fund, that same investment you're making is not just being diversified over 100 units. Now it's being diversified over, for example, we'll say 300 units in multiple markets with different operators. So let's use that example of the hurricane. Let's say we had this fund purchase 3 properties, one in Arizona, one in Texas, and one in Florida. The one in Florida, and we, in that example, I'll go back to numbers to help you visualize, okay? So we had a $5 million fund. So let's say in Arizona, we put 2 million there. Texas, we put 2 million. And then in Florida, we invested the other million, okay? So we spread out the 5 million, 3 different states, 3 different markets, 3 different assets. When that hurricane came and hit Florida, boom, it didn't necessarily knock it out, but your cash flow is going to be hurting for quite some time until they're able to recover. However, you still have 2 great assets, one in Arizona, one in Texas, which are some of the top performing markets in the country. So even though this property got hit, you still have money flowing through into the fund from these other 2 assets, while the operations teams gets the Florida property back up and running again. So again, a higher level of diversification. This is one that I really like that a lot of people don't consider, and that's the negotiating power behind having a fund, okay? So let's assume all of us on this call put $50,000 into somebody else's deal individually, okay? We all took 50,000, we put it in, and they said, hey, for that 50,000, this is how it's structured. You're entitled to, we'll just say like a 14% return, okay? Based on the structure. Now, let's take that same property, but what we're all going to do on this call is pool our money together. So we're all going to put our $50,000 together. And now we're coming to that operator saying, hey, we have over $500,000 that we want to invest into your deal. However, since we're bringing in more capital, we expect a higher return or different splits or structure than that person that's only putting in 50,000, because financially we're putting more on the table. So as a fund, you have the ability to do that. So if I'll pick on Jim here because he's on my team. Jim sees an opportunity, he invests 50,000 into it, and they're like, okay, great. The way it's going to work out, you're projected to get we'll say a 14% return. The rest of us come in with our money into that same deal, and we say, hey, Mr. Mrs. Operator, I see that Jim invested 50,000. He's getting a 14% return. Since we're bringing in even more capital, this is how we'd like to see it structured, so we're incentivized to put more capital with you. Now, why would they accept that? Because it's less work for them to raise that capital if we're coming in big chunks. So we might be able to go in and say, hey, we don't want 14%, we want 16%. So you're still investing the same $50,000, but since it's coming in as a fund, we can negotiate a higher return that then flows down into the fund and then to the investors within that fund. So that's what I really like about it, negotiating, especially when you get up to $1, $2, $3 million, maybe even more, and you're putting up half the capital. There's a lot more wiggle room for negotiation. And again, I just want to point out the tax benefits. So the way the tax benefits work is that as you go into each individual property, those tax benefits, depreciation, that income, all of it flows into the fund and then out to the investors. So you're still able to take advantage of the tax benefits even in a fund model. Now, what's one of the biggest cons with a fund? One of the biggest cons with a fund is that oftentimes the property is not identified. It's not identified. And the reason being is because those that run a fund, they say, hey, here are the types of deals we're investing in. Here's some of the deals we've invested in previously. We haven't identified these properties yet, but we want this capital up front so that we can make quick moves on these opportunities when they come. So the deals aren't always identified. And some people don't like investing in that because, again, they prefer the syndication route where they can say, hey, this right here, this property, this is the one I looked at. These are the numbers I saw. This is the one that I want to invest my capital into. And that's okay. So that is one of the downsides to a fund, is that quite often you don't know necessarily what properties you're investing in. So what are you investing in? You're investing in that operator, you're investing in their track record, you're investing in the team, and you're still going to be able to see the types of projects they did. And so it can take a little bit more work and a little bit more time to launch a fund because you've really got to build up the relationship with the investors to where they know, like, and trust you. And that when you invest into a deal, you're absolutely going to have their best interest at mind. So this has been a lot of work for us transitioning into it. And that's part of the reasons we do these weekly webinars, because the more educated people are, the more comfortable and familiar they are in making moves and making investments. And at the end of the day, we firmly believe that a fund is the best vehicle for the passive investor. So with that being said, again, these were not exhaustive lists of the different avenues, but an introduction to help you understand how different people, how different groups invest in real estate so that you can determine and decide which one aligns best with your interests. Now, if this fund model aligns with your interest, let's jump on a call. We'd love to have a chat with you and just see if the alignment is even there. We don't have a deal to invest or to solicit. And at the end of the day, we partner with all of our investors. And so we want to first and foremost make sure that the alignment is there. And one of the best ways you can do that and to get that call started is to sign up into our investor portal. And we have a link that we'll throw into the chat box here. It takes 30 seconds to set it up. You can see some of the previous deals we've done, and that will get you into our system so that we can connect and just see if it's a good fit. And if it's not, we have a pretty extensive network, so we might be able to introduce you to another operator or another investor that might be more aligned with what your interests are. So that's what we're willing to do. If you have interest in that, then schedule that quick call, 15 minutes, just to give us a chance to get to know each other, and we can go from there. But with that being said, that's what I've got for you guys. And look at that, 32 minutes. We didn't even take the full hour. So as I mentioned, it's just going to be kind of short and sweet, but wanted to open it up now for a few questions about any of these different scenarios, or maybe you were presented with some options in the past that didn't quite understand how it was structured or how the money or the income was going to flow. Like, we could take, since we have so much time, let's just take a few minutes. If you have any questions about any of the stuff we talked about, then I'm all ears. I'm here to help you out.
I got a quick question, Dallin. Just wanted to check. You made the assessment that the higher the quantity of funds that you are investing, the higher return you can expect to get. And I noticed that in the most recent deal that we talked about. Does that generally hold true in real estate? It's if I'm investing 100,000, you're investing 50,000, I should expect to get a higher rate of return.
That's a great question, Beck, and I'm glad you brought that up. So what Beck was talking about, let me give you guys some background real quick. Beck jumped in on a deal with us, and there was two different shares. They had a Class A share and they had a Class B share. So some funds are structured in this way to incentivize people to put in more, to invest more capital. So the way that these were structured, and I'm trying to figure out how much I should share without getting into the weeds too much, but to help you visualize, okay, I believe it was a 7% pref and an 8% pref, if I recall correctly on that deal. So Class A shares got an 8% pref. What is a preferred return? A preferred return is saying, hey, you as the investors are going to get 100% of the cash flow until you hit 8% a year on your money. And then we as the operators, that's when we're incentivized to perform, because if we hit over this, then I should have added this first. So what you might see in a typical deal is like a 7% pref and a 70-30 split. What that means is you as the investor are going to get 100% of the cash flow, 100% of the cash flow until you hit that 7% return. Once you hit that 7% return, whatever profits are remaining, then 70% goes to the investor, and the other 30% goes to the operator or the manager. So what this does is it aligns the interest with the investor, because it's putting the investor's interest first, and then it incentivizes the operator to perform. And so the way the deal works out, this structure might get you, I can't remember what was projected on that one back. I think it was around 19 or 20% average annual return. No, I'm sorry. That was for the Class A. And then this Class B share, I think, was projected to get around a 17 or 18% average annual return. So what Beck brought up here is in this specific deal, there's two different classes. If you wanted Class A, this was a higher investment of $150,000. This Class B was $50,000. And the reason being is it simply incentivizes those that want to invest more capital. So it gives them a little bonus on the back end because of how the deal is structured. So to answer Beck's question, is that typical? Yes and no. I know some operators that will do, they keep it simple. So what they do is they have a $50,000 minimum. So they'll have a $50,000 minimum investment. And what they do is a straight 80-20 split. Straight 80-20 split. So there is no preferred return. There is no hurdle. It's just whatever. If $100,000 comes into that deal in cash flow, 80% of it goes to the investor, and then 20% goes to the operator. So they just do a simple split with all the cash flow, with the sale proceeds, with all that. We've done the math on this and we've looked at it. And regardless of what structure you do, in the end, it typically works out to be about the same, oftentimes. But still, like, some investors prefer having the preferred return because they like knowing, like, hey, we're being taken care of first. So you'll see different structures in different funds. And so as an investor, that's what you want to look into. And the reason being, again, like if someone's putting up, see this option, the reason we don't like this option is because we have some investors that have invested $500,000 with us. So in my mind and in their mind, why would it be fair for them to be treated the same way as a person that put in a $50,000 investment? They have less skin in the game than the $500,000 investor. So depending on the funds and the operators, you'll see it structured to incentivize people to invest more. So it really depends. Does that answer your question, Beck?
Yeah, great. That does. I just wondering if that was kind of an industry standard but it just varies depending on the investment. Okay.
It does. And I am starting to see it a little bit more. There's certain the straight 80-20 split. There's a certain mentorship group out there that really pushes this. So that's where I kind of see it in their group. But outside of that, in the typical world of funds, you'll often see different shares, different tranches to enable people, because some people might still want to participate and are eligible, but they don't have 500,000, but they have 50,000. And
Right.
then you have others that want to jump in that do have 500,000. So it just really depends on the operator. But great question.
All right. Thanks.
That was probably more of a response than you were looking for back, but hopefully it helped. Any other questions?
Well, it took long enough. It made me forget my other question.
My apologies. Just
Sorry. I'm just giving you bad time.
All right. Well, if there's no additional questions, let's go ahead and call it a day. Again, appreciate you all jumping on. If you haven't had a chance to sign up in our investor portal, the link is in the chat box. It's not a commitment to invest. Let me clarify that. It's by no means a commitment to invest. It just shows your interest so that we can connect with you to see if it's even a good fit. That's really all it is. So with that being said, appreciate you all coming out. If you're local to the Phoenix area, next Thursday, we actually have a live event that we're putting on in Phoenix focused on apartment investing. And we're going to have, we probably bit off more than we could chew. We're probably going to have over 100 people there at the event. We're still a week out from it, and we're close to about 150 RSVPs. So I'd anticipate there's going to be about 200 people that sign up. But with it being a free event, about half of them may not show up. But that event will give you an opportunity, if you are local, to come get to know me and our team, see how we operate, and we'd love to see you there. So if you are local, feel free to follow up with us and we can get you that link. Diana, you just unmuted yourself. Do you have a question?
Yes, I'm going to be in Phoenix on Thursday. I was just wondering at what time that was.
Tell you what I'll do. I got your information. It's Thursday at 6:00 in Phoenix. Where are you from, Diana?
Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Awesome. So are you coming into town just for this?
No, I am actually, there's another conference that I'll be joining. I don't know if you are familiar with Jerome Maldonado, but he's having a conference.
Okay.
And then our business partner is also in Phoenix, so we're going to be meeting with him as well. His name is John Troutman. I don't know if you know him as well, but
It doesn't ring a bell. They do quite a bit of single family investing.
No, they do multifamily, and
They do multi. Okay.
John does more of any commercial. Like he'll, he'll repurpose some condos that are maybe office and maybe more suitable for multifamily. So he's done that.
Awesome.
He targets a lot of distressed properties that are commercial, and he'll change the facade and maybe change its purpose and try to see what he can do with it to get a little bit more creative.
That's awesome. Yeah, I've heard of Jerome, and you're welcome to invite them along as well. We'd love to meet you guys. So one of my business partners just put the link in the chat box, the Eventbrite. So it's going to be Thursday from 6 to 9, and it's in the Midtown Phoenix area, so pretty easy to access. But yeah, it's just going to be a great time. We've for a while there, we put on the largest monthly gathering in Arizona focused on apartment investing, and we always bring in guest speakers, and it's networking and education. I don't have a $30,000 program that I'm going to try to sell anyone on, because we just don't do that. We focus on the properties and the investors. But yeah, it would be great to get you out there, and be sure to come up and say hi if you can make it.
Yes, I definitely will. I'll let my husband know, and that way he could tag along with me and go check it out. I know I've met with the smaller group here in Albuquerque a couple months ago, and I missed last month's meeting, but I want to see what else there is to learn and see if we can connect with others.
Awesome. Happy to introduce you to some people there. Looking forward to it.
Where's it going to be at?
It's called the Expansive Midtown. It's an event space. So Beck, we can text you the link to it. Are you gonna come up for it?
Yeah, I've been debating that. Yes.
Good job. Bring your boy up since he missed Sedona.
I can do that.
Awesome. All right, guys. Again, thank you so much for your time. And seriously, like it's 10 o'clock in Phoenix right now, almost 11 o'clock. Appreciate you taking time out of your days and out of your schedules to come learn and to come network and connect with us and our team. So looking forward to seeing you all in person if you can make it at our event next Thursday. And if not, we've got an awesome webinar next Thursday. And our man who's actually on this call, Mr. Justin Jensen, is going to be talking about the tax benefits of getting in to real estate investing and how you as an investor can really maximize that potential. So it's going to be super good. We look forward to having them there, and we'll catch you all next week.
Thanks, Dallin.